Hi book lovers, and welcome to Bookmas Day 4. And in the next couple of weeks we're going to talk about a lot of books that I loved, a lot of favorites in general, but not today. Today we're going to talk about the 5 books I hated in 2024. Quickly, before I go into that, just a quick disclaimer, this is just for fun. So if you enjoyed any of these books that I'm going to mention, don't take this personally. I mean, really, this is just my opinion and everyone can have a different opinion on books. Let's just have fun talking a little bit of crap from books that are bad. The funny thing this year is that I actually don't own any of the 5 books physically, and also didn't rank these 5 books. They're just all bad to me. And I may hate some of them more than others, but overall didn't rank them. I'm just gonna go in order of the ones that I put down here. And maybe we're gonna start with the one that I feel like I'm just someone who didn't get the book. Like, it's not in particular that I think, oh, it's super bad, but I don't understand the hype around it. And that is Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikatsu Kawaguchi. I'm very sorry if I say that wrong. However, this is a book that is very popular and a lot of people seem to enjoy this and get something out of this book that I just don't understand. Like, to me, this book was mostly just very, very boring, but it also pissed me off. There was so much repetition in this book, and especially the rules of this magic system, because basically in this book you follow 4 short stories and they're all centered around this cafe where you can go in and time travel, and while you time travel you have to drink a coffee before it gets cold. Otherwise I think you'll be stuck in that place. And there are a couple of other rules that I don't recall right now, but that's just because I didn't care, because in the book those rules were repeated. I'm not kidding you, like every other page. And I mean, we're talking about short stories here. Like, I felt like the author thought we had like 2 brain cells and we would forget those rules immediately. Especially the first short story, I think that was my least favorite. I hated that one so much. Like, the reason why she time traveled back kind of didn't really make sense, and it didn't have to happen. Like, this book plays in modern days, so you could also just phone someone, call them and talk like normal people. Like, the whole plot around why she time traveled and that this was like the only chance, I just didn't really get it, because this person is still here in the present time. You can still call that person and have the conversation now and not make this overly complicated where you risk basically your life to go back, when you could just do that all in your current time. And I don't know what the moral or the message of the story was, but don't ever wait years and years for a guy who couldn't even say that he's gonna miss you. Alright? So I would say I didn't really click with this book. I wouldn't really say that I don't recommend this book ever, because I know that a lot of people do really enjoy this, and again, maybe I just didn't really get the higher meaning of something in there. It was just not for me, but if you're still interested and intrigued, then might as well try it for yourself. I think the good thing about this is it's not a very long book and therefore not like a huge commitment. Alright, next up, let's talk about a book that is just really badly written, and that is Guild. And technically this book contains 3 separate books, but it's included in one here, so I just treat it as one book. This book, I feel like, could have been good, not great, but at least better if it just had a really good editor that would get rid of a lot of unnecessary plot lines and also made it not creepy and cringe, especially when we follow characters that are underage. Like, I'm usually not someone who cares about stuff like that too much, but reading this book, it just really gave me the ick almost, reading about those like young characters. The characters were almost written in a way where they just really didn't feel like people. You're immediately taken out of the story and you know this is fiction, and nothing they do like makes any sense, isn't anywhere near reality. And I mean, I feel like there are fantasy books out there where I believe the plot lines with fae and vampires more to be real than the characters in this book. In my review on Goodreads, I said that this felt like Pretty Little Liars on crack with very bad writing, and I feel like that is so accurate, especially if you think about like the last season of Pretty Little Liars. If you want something like that, but even worse, then maybe read this book. The next book, I'm really sad that this one didn't work out, because I picked this one up with a friend. We both read it. We both rated it 1 star, so what an experience of a buddy read. But we wanted a tennis romance, because we both went to a tennis match, and as book girlies, we romanticize everything in life. I would argue that this book had like the worst and my least favorite main characters ever. I hated them so much. They were like you were just following bad people. Like in another book, they would be the villain. But now I had to read the story about the villains, but without a redeeming story. This was not like a villain turned hero or a misunderstood villain. No, they're just the villains. And even worse, because they didn't even realize that they were bad people and they felt just sorry for themselves and they made excuses for being just really, really awful. And I honestly don't get how people can give this book more than 1 or 2 stars. I don't understand how you can read this and not feel super mad at the main characters. Hi guys, I'm very sorry to interrupt, but the good booktuber I am, my camera died because it wasn't charged properly. So I had to charge it and also had to change location. So just so you know why it looks a bit different in a second. But yeah, let's just continue to rant about books I didn't like last year, and we're still on Love Game. The plot was just very convenient for their romance because our main character girl, she's a chef. She lost her job, applies for the new one where she becomes the personal chef of Nick, who is the tennis player, and he's been so good for years, but right now he's very shitty at his game. And you know why he needs a personal chef? Wait for it. Because he, a professional athlete, wakes up at like 2 a.m. in the morning and needs something cooked then. That's why he needs a personal chef, because he can't make himself a sandwich at that time, and it also can't be pre-cooked and then heated. No, they have to meet every night and both get up and, oh, in the dark hours are their feelings. And you know, it wouldn't even be that bad. I mean, the plot is stupid, but okay, sometimes we read stupid plots, but if the romance is good, we can overlook that, right? In this one though, when they develop feelings for each other, he is actually in a relationship. And yes, this is a cheating romance when he starts an affair with her. And when I'm telling you guys that these 2 adults made the conscious decision to start an affair, but also at the same time acted like they were the victims of this whole story, I just, no. And obviously I didn't root for them. And I could give you a dozen more reasons why this was bad. Like also our female main character, she didn't have any respect for herself. Then Nick the guy was just the biggest man-child. And also the romance that had just the worst setup just really didn't even try to convince me. Everything their love story was based on was just lust, like the physical attraction. And that is just not a good enough reason for me to believe in your affair. So goodbye and let's move on. My second to last book, I'm actually really sad that it didn't work out because I did read it for a review and the premise did sound like fun. I'm talking about Velvet Shadow, and this was romantic suspense, so also a genre I don't read too much, but I was really interested. It was just really bad writing, and the characters also felt not like people at all. Like, I don't need to connect to characters all the time, but I would say that when you do, it instantly makes the book better. But at least I want to understand the people and want to get the feeling that they could be real. So even if I don't connect with them, I still think, oh, it's a believable character. I think what made it almost so cringe to read is that, like, it felt that the author tried to make every sentence super important. So to give you an example, it would be like, oh, so there's a mug on the shelf that is half empty. It is half empty because she feels half empty inside. Every single sentence, like every single sentence tried so hard to be meaningful. And I just thought, you know, sometimes you just want to describe a scene. So if you would describe the scene, you would say, oh, she also has a mug and she drinks tea, and that's it. This doesn't tell you my life story. And I understand that, you know, sometimes you can do that and you can be more metaphorically or even poetic with your writing, but I also feel like that is a certain talent, and you have to know when it fits and when it doesn't. And when you try so hard with every sentence, then it's just too much. But that also brings us to the last book of the 5 that I very much disliked in 2024. But before we go to the last one, I actually wanted to mention the ones that barely made it off this list. The first one is On Cloud 9 by Kels and Denise Stone. And this was a book that was just way too long. And that's, I think, why it escaped the 5 worst books of 2024, because it was bad, but especially the beginning was enjoyable. It just became very boring, and you could have easily cut 100 pages and it would have been so much more enjoyable. And the next book is also actually the only one that I physically own. This book that almost made it on the list, I think also gonna shock a few people, but that's actually Wild Love by Elsie Silver. And before you guys come for me and say like, oh, this is actually an incredible book and I just didn't get it, like, I in general like Elsie Silver's writing and I loved books by her before, so this is not a general opinion that I don't like anything by her. This book just really didn't work out for me, and I'm so sorry because I know a lot of people absolutely love this book, and it made me question myself whether I'm wrong, whether I missed something in here. But I feel like I'm the only person who really disliked the plot. I just thought that this was very dismissive of the biological father, and I didn't like how this situation was handled. Didn't love their romance. I didn't really see them as a romantic couple. They kind of felt more like siblings, and yeah, this was really not for me. But I mean, it's not one of the worst 5 books that I read this year, because in the end of the day, like, Essie Silver is a very good author and her writing was still fun, so even though I didn't like the book, the writing was good. And a lot of these books that I mentioned in here, the writing was just also bad. So with that said, let's talk about the 5th book on this list, and that is Not the Man I Thought He Was by Phoebe McLeod. And right now I'm looking at the Goodreads and it has a rating of 4.02. So I'm definitely the minority, but wow. I don't understand that writing. They marketed this as a romance, but as a romance, this book sucked. Like, as a general fiction chick lit, I kind of get how you would enjoy this. I mean, I think it's still stupid, but okay, I get it. But as a romance, and this is marketed as a romance, it was so bad. And I feel like it really doesn't deserve to be called a romance. And I want to give you quickly the plot. It's so bad that it's just very laughable. Our main character works for this travel magazine and she goes undercover with a co-worker as her fake boyfriend, fake husband, to experience this hotel as a couple and to be treated like normal people, not like the journalists who then would rate the hotel. And she and her co-worker, who is like the photographer for this travel magazine, they become friends, and she thinks it's such a cool friendship because she thinks that he's gay, and the reasons why she thinks he's gay are so stupid. I think it's just because he like dresses well and he's just a decent guy, like he's nice and he doesn't look at her how guys usually look at her, and the things they do to like blossom their friendship is just so cringe. Like at one point, because they have to share a bathroom and everything, she's like, let's just both undress and stare at each other naked because then it won't be awkward anymore. So they do that, and literally there's no attraction because the whole time she's like, oh yeah, but he's gay, and also, I mean, he saw me naked and he didn't have any reaction, so we're just best friends. There's literally not one point where she questions whether he's gay or not. Like, she just assumes the whole time. She also never asks him. And then at the very, very end, when she finds out that, hey, he has feelings for her and he's not gay, she's like super shocked and she doesn't even know how to handle this. And like, it's just so unromantic. Obviously she doesn't have romantic feelings for him. Only when he reveals that he's not, she's like, oh no, maybe I see you in a different light. And like, giving you a summary of the plot, I'm just literally thinking, who thought of that? Who thought that this would be a good plot for a romance? Like, at best you can just laugh about it, how ridiculous this is, but at worst I feel like it's also almost borderline offensive the way she acted towards him. And yeah, I just hated this book so much. But yeah guys, with this I finished my little rant, and I don't really like to hate on books because, you know, it's still incredible that these authors publish books and it is an impressive accomplishment, but I always want to be honest with you guys. And I mean, I already told you at the beginning, this is just my opinion. And also after this video we're also moving on to all the favorites of the year. So we got the 5 worst ones out of the way, and now we have room for all the love, because there were so many more books that I really enjoyed, absolutely loved this year, than the ones that I really didn't. So I want to end this video on a good note. I hope you enjoyed this little chatty video. Definitely give this a like and also subscribe for more bookish content, and I'll see you guys not tomorrow but the day after for Bookmas Day 5. Bye!